Kip, what's up, man? Glad to have you back on the AMA. You're communicating with a different guy based on the length of my beard this week.
Yeah, I thought that was Brian Mitchler, but I realized it was you. So
Yeah, it is. It is me. Little smaller beard, a little lower on the pride a little bit, but here we are nonetheless.
yeah, I'm enjoying for the YouTube guys. For the people that's not subscribed to YouTube, you got to check this out.
Get subscribed, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
Ryan just has like a serious soul patch. That's all. He shaved everything, and he just has this soul patch going on.
Soul patch, flavor saver. What other names can we come up with? Oh man, yes.
Not me.
Yeah. This morning I've been thinking about it for a while because Jiu Jitsu has been kicking my trash lately with getting the beard pulled on and whatever. So I've been thinking about it for a while, and this morning I went into the bathroom and I'm like, all right, hon, I'm doing this. And she's like, okay. So I'm like, what do you think? Like here? And I had the scissors held up to my beard. I'm like, you think here? She's like, nah, I think that's too short, because she likes my longer beard.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I think that's too short. I'm like, really? I'm like, no. And I just did it. And she's like, whoa. And all the, like my little girl was in there, and one of my boys was in there. They're like, no, because they actually like the beard. So yeah, it's a little different. My neck's cold, but other than that, I'm pretty good.
Do any of your kids not like the beard?
No. Well, they don't, none of them know me without it.
Oh,
But I guess my oldest is almost 12 now. So he was 7 when I started growing my beard, but the rest were, well, like my second was 4 years old. Yeah, 4 years old. So, and my other 2 don't know anything but me having a beard. So it's weird to them.
Yeah. My 6-year-old, whenever I shave, she's like, oh, I don't like it. You don't even look like my dad. You look like some young guy. Yeah. She's like totally weirded out by it. It's funny. Cool,
man. It is what it is.
Well,
so here we are. Well, we got some good questions this week. I'm excited to get into them. I perused some of them and saw some of them. So these are all coming from our Brotherhood, the Iron Council, I think, this week.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Cool. And it was great having you out. The guys who met up with us in Salt Lake and get some training on. When was that? Thursday morning? Was that Thursday morning?
Thursday. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was great. It was good.
Yeah, we did a little jiu-jitsu training, little nogi, which, man, that is a completely different animal for me than, because most of my training is with a gi, so completely different animal. Yeah, it's good though.
It's fun. Yeah. Marcus is going to assume that you shaved that beard because he called you out about choking you with your beard on Facebook, and then you go shave it like 2 days later. He's gonna be
That's true. Yeah. Well, I told him, I said, I'm immune to beard chokes, and he's like, I'll put that to the test, and then I trim it. So maybe he will.
Yeah, not looking good on your part.
No, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I fear I just expose my neck even more, and I'll just get tapped out more on chokes than I'm used to. But we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah. Good times. All right.
I almost got another stripe on my belt last night.
What do you mean? Oh, hold on. You almost got another stripe? I don't even understand how you almost got one.
Well, he was like, if you can pass my guard, I'll give you a stripe. And I'm like,
oh, that's hard.
I'm like, okay. And I tried so hard. And he was just sitting there laughing the whole time. He's like, and we got done. It was like a 10-minute round. We got done, and I didn't pass his guard. And he's like, stripes are hard to get here, Mickler. Stripes are hard to get here. So
that makes it worse. That makes, because let's see the translation. Here's the translation. I think you've gotten good enough to be awarded a stripe, but I'm not sure. And then the answer was, no, you're not.
You're not. My suspicion was correct.
Yeah, that stinks.
No, it was good. No, it's good. I want it to be hard. Like if it wasn't hard, it wouldn't mean anything. So. You got to earn it, man. You got to earn it.
Love it. I love it. It's funny how a little strip of medical tape on a piece of fabric starts becoming meaningful.
I know. It's like this little 10-cent piece of tape, and it means the world to you. So we'll get there.
All right. So like Mr. Mickler already said, these questions were fielding from the Iron Council, our exclusive brotherhood. To learn more, go to orderofman.com/Iron Council. All right. First question, Brian Dunnigan. What are some of the most important lessons that you've learned from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Man, there's a lot here. I think the first one is, and I don't know that these are in order, but I would say consistency is big, because when I started doing jujitsu about a year and a half ago, I want to say it was like August, July,
Yeah.
August, somewhere in there of 2018. Yeah, 2018. I went for like 3 classes, and then I went to Origins Immersion Camp, and I came back and I maybe
He's
did
like,
like
that's good
one
enough.
or
I
right,
know
and I
enough.
maybe did like one or two. Yeah, I know enough. I got this. Maybe did like one or two more classes, then kind of phased out. But then when I got here to Maine in July, end of June, beginning of July of last year, 2019, I have been super consistent since then. So for the past 7 months now, I've been very, very consistent. And I think that's like anything, is we have to maintain a level of consistency. Jiu-jitsu to me seems like it could be perishable. I mean, a lot of the principles you're gonna learn and hold on to, but it's perishable, just like most skill sets are. And people are getting better around you, and so whether it's business or relationships or any facet of your life, like it's not enough just to go once a week and say, okay, I filled my quota for the week. Like you have to be very, very consistent about doing it. So that's been good. The other thing that I can think of that comes off right off the top of my mind is just not like bull rushing everything, not like muscling everything and trying to like strong arm everything. Because I remember when I first started doing that, and I still do it, but not to the degree I was, is I would just gas myself out by like trying to push people off of me and move other people instead of move myself. And so I've learned, okay, I'm just going to move myself around this individual, look for gaps, look for spaces, find the holes, and then attack those holes, as opposed to me like trying to force everything. And that's what's really interesting about jiu-jitsu too, is you learn a lot about your own personality and you learn a lot about other people's personalities as well when you roll with them. Like very quickly what type of person this is. Which is good. It's good, but if you are looking at it objectively with your own performance, it allows you to see very quickly some holes in your personality, not just your game, but your personality, and how you might be able to shore those areas up by learning, by training with different partners, and just improving those specific areas. So, I mean, there's a lot. We talk about it every week. It seems like we talk about, in jiu-jitsu, da 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 da. But man, those are the two lessons that come off immediately: is just consistency, and then being patient, looking for gaps, not trying to strong arm everything, but move to where it's going to make the most effective difference.
Yeah. Is there a philosophy coming out of jiu-jitsu that you probably appreciate more than other philosophies that transcend off the mat into everyday life?
I don't know about philosophy, but one of the mindsets I would say is try to improve your position, right? Because as somebody who's just getting started down this jiu-jitsu path, I used to think that in order to win, you have to submit somebody. And yes, that is true. That is what technically you are trying to do. But the likelihood of me, especially early, submitting anybody was very, very unlikely. And so talking with Pete Roberts, he said to me, and this is very valuable, you have to redefine your win. Like you're not going to tap, like I'm not going to tap Pete, right? Like that'll be a decade before that happens. So if you don't redefine your win, then you could get discouraged very, very quickly. And so he said to me, maybe your win is don't let me sweep you. And for this roll, for this session. And that's a win. Or get past my guard, right? And that's a win. So I think we have a tendency as high achievers, and I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with this. It can be destructive towards what you're trying to create, but we have a tendency of comparing ourselves to everybody else. And if you're comparing yourself to somebody else and then using it as an excuse to beat yourself up and why you're a loser or why you're pathetic or why you shouldn't be doing this, and it causes you to engage in some destructive behavior, namely quitting. That's what a lot of people will do. Like, I suck at this. It's not meant to be, so I'll quit. Then it's not serving you to compare yourself to somebody else.
Yeah.
So for me, it's the philosophy is, yes, the goal, the end objective, which is to submit somebody in jiu-jitsu or whatever that objective you're working towards, is important. But more important than that is just improving daily, right? I'm just going to get a little better, a little better, a little better. Like last night, I trained last night and we were working on triangles and like a leg triangle and then arm bars. And then I went and trained this morning. I'm like, okay, well, my win today, I know I could submit, I can do that, but my win today is catching somebody in a triangle or an arm bar. If I can do that, then I'll feel good about that. And that's that incremental, that Kaizen method of 1% better every day. That is a philosophy that's really highlighted itself on my path.
Yeah. And what I love about that too is the idea of position and submission, that there's no win in a match without putting yourself in a position to have that opportunity. And that translates to life, right? It's about getting in the right position first so opportunities present themselves.
Yeah.
And jiu-jitsu is no different, right? You can go, oh, I have this opportunity to choke this guy. But if you're not in the right position, guess what? You're going to get armbarred, right? If you're in a guy's guard and you're trying to choke him, you're going to get armbarred or something else. And so we have this mentality in life, right? That we can, oh, well, I can win this. I could do this thing without putting ourselves in the right position first. And jiu-jitsu is no different. We have to put ourselves in that right position, and then the opportunity of submission will present itself.
It's a great point. The analogy or the phrase that I heard is you're campaigning. Whether you want to look at it as a political campaign or you want to look at it as a military campaign, right? You're going on small incremental campaigns and you have to know where the battle is. So if I've got you in half guard and I'm going for a choke, but I expose myself to something else, well, then I forgot where the battle was. Right? I thought the battle was me choking you out, but the battle was really to get my leg out of there or put my arm in a different position so that I could set that up. So it's about winning the campaigns. You win this campaign, then this campaign, then this campaign, and ultimately, hopefully, you win the war. But you can't win that without winning those battles and those individual campaigns. And knowing where the fight is very important too. You know, we see the finish line or we see the goal, and then we forget about all these other little things that are happening, and we get flanked and we get destroyed by things that we didn't acknowledge were there when we should have seen those things, but we're so focused on that without learning to campaign that we get handled.
Yeah, totally. All right, Ed Mather, masturbation, yay or nay?
Whew, I saw this one. I'm like, man, how do we address this? Look, I think, well, we can come up with it a couple different angles. To me, the most healthy practice is to have sex with a woman
that you're committed to.
And I should say that you are committed to, that you are. Yes, that's the rule, that you're committed to. And she's committed to you, by the way, also. Yeah. Because a lot of guys might think, oh, I'm committed to this woman. And then you go sleep with this woman and you realize, oh, she's not committed to me. Or maybe she was unfaithful to her partner. And then you try to build a relationship on that. I mean, how long is that going to last? Yeah. Right? The relationship was built on lies and deception. You're not the one that's going to fix her. Like, it's just not going to happen. And vice versa. So that's the better practice. I'm kind of torn on this, actually. Like, I think it's probably a practice to be avoided generally. I think there's some discipline that can come in, not choosing to engage in masturbation. There's things like semen retention that I've looked into. I don't know if I buy into that whole thing. There's some weird stuff there. And then you got to think what comes with that. Well, pornography comes with that. And I think pornography is certainly a destructive and a behavior that you should not engage in. So, I mean, I'm not going to say yes or no. I mean, I know we have needs. I know we're sexual. Like, that's just kind of how it is. Yeah. So I'm not going to say yes, you should, or no, you shouldn't, but I would say just be careful, right? Like, it's easier to go rub one out than to court a woman. I will say that. Right. It's easier to go. It's weird. It's a weird conversation, but it's easier to jack off than it is to go court somebody or take your wife on a date or try to woo her over. It's easier. And therein lies the trap, right? It could just be easier and there's no effort required. You pull up your phone, you pull up a website, you rub one out, and like that's significantly easier than having to invest in earning a mate, essentially. So just be careful, be cautious. Don't get like entangled into it. Don't let it, dictate your life or how you're going to run your schedule, but I'm not going to tell you whether you should or shouldn't. That's up for you to decide.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it comes back to what you originally said, man. Think about it. I mean, if I'm sexually frustrated and it's been 2 weeks or whatever, and then my wife's good to go, like, that's awesome. And if I wasn't, it wouldn't be as great, right? Like, that's better for her and better for me. Like, maybe that's frustrating. It could be frustrating at times, but it's also like, I don't know. I just can't help but think of the scenario by which, like, some dude goes rub one off and then his wife's like wants to be intimate with him, and you're like, oh, sorry. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, right. Or you just undermined her opportunity to be with you intimately. And now it's not as great for her, or maybe you're not interested now. It's like, that sucks.
Right.
Like, that's a really crappy scenario. So I don't know.
I think the trap is, again, I mean, just to go back to what I said earlier, I think the trap is it's easy. It's the easy way out. And that's a problem. It's like, let's be real. Like, you see that porn star or whatever on that website, and she's got the perfect set of breasts. She's got the perfect type body. She's like the perfect ideal thing or whatever, right? And then you see your wife and you're like, okay, well, this is like a real human being, and she has flaws and you have flaws. And all of a sudden you're not as attracted to her because you're so fixated on this Barbie doll image of a woman. It's like, it's not healthy. It really isn't. It's not healthy. So just be cautious. It's like, to me, it's like alcohol, right? Like, I don't drink alcohol, but I'm not going to tell another guy that it's like he should or shouldn't. If he wants to have a drink, like, have a drink. Cool. That's fine. No problem. But don't let it control you, right? Yeah. Just don't let it control you. Don't use it as a form of escapism either.
Yeah. Thanks, Ed, for bringing that up.
Making things awkward.
Yeah.
It's good. I mean, these are the conversations that we should have, actually. So
yeah. Well, I normally don't talk with other dudes about masturbation, and certainly with not thousands and thousands of them listening either. So
yeah. Well, first time for everything, I suppose. Awkward.
Oh, weird. All right, Luke Watts. Struggling with my 6-year-old son. His emotions take over when he gets challenged or corrected, or sometimes even when he hears no. I know some of this is because he is 6, and some of it's because I modeled this kind of thing, anger taking over in particular. I'm working on staying calm when I address this and trying to offer him strategies to help him stay calm and not let emotions take over, but have seen little progress this last month. Lots of things are going on, like back to school here in Australia. Any other tips for handling emotions-driven responses in your children, boys or girls? I have a younger daughter as well. Thanks, lads.
Yeah, that's a good question. I know my kids get this way at times, and certainly the fact that he's 6 years old is a huge factor of this. He's immature. Obviously, he's 6. He's learning from you. Sounds like he's learned some negative behavior, and you're aware of that. So I commend you for acknowledging that and then working to fix it, because a lot of guys don't. They're like, my kid's an asshole.
Yeah,
and
kids,
nothing I can do about it.
Shit from, yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it's funny, that we see it in our kids and we can't acknowledge they learned it from us. So I commend you for acknowledging that. My oldest he's very sensitive, right? Like, he's very in tune with the way other people feel. He's very in tune with his emotional side. I think he's driven a lot by his emotional response and the way that he makes decisions, which I think is kind of just his natural inclination. Just like some people are more logical, he's more emotionally driven, right, in charge. So when he gets upset, particularly when he gets upset, like he doesn't perform well or something doesn't go his way, like I could actually see his emotion coming out of him, the way that he's responding to it. So for him, I've just taught him some box breathing methods. When I see him getting upset like that, I'm like, hey, dude, like, time out. Like, literally, like Breck and you and I, let's time out here for a second. Let's disengage from whatever you're upset about, and let's just go sit down and talk about it. He does like to talk through things, so I can be really calm and talk to him about it and be logical with him that way. But ultimately, if I can just get him to breathe, like just breathe, like deep breaths, hold it, deep breath out, long breath out, that actually really, really helps. And now we've done it so much that I can say when he's getting frustrated, I can say, hey, why don't you just go in the other room for a minute? We're not kicking you out or anything. Just go be by yourself for a second, work on your breathing, and then come back in 5 minutes. And now I don't even need to go into there. Like he can go and he comes back like a completely different person because of that breathing technique. That's going to take some time, especially for a 6-year-old. He's 12, so almost 12. So for a 6-year-old, it's going to be even more challenging to do that. But I know my second son, if I just give him a hug, man, life is good. Like if he gets fired up, I'm like, dude, come here. And I just grab him and I don't say a word and I just give him a hug. He feels better. You know, he's just like, he can feel my presence. He can feel my calmness, my breathing. For whatever reason, it just calms him down. So I really think it's going to take a lot of experimentation to figure out what's going to work best for him. And then it sounds like he's got a daughter as well. She's going to be different. So you're going to have to experiment there. But just try different things like that. Try calmness. My third, my daughter, like her, I just have to engage with. Like we could go roll on the mats. We have mats at our house that we can roll around on or play with or wrestle or whatever. And that's what calms her down. So like every one of them is different. Just find through experimentation what's going to work best and what's producing the best result, and then be consistent about doing that. And you'll see that they'll start to learn these practices and implement them as part of their routine.
Yeah. You know, that hug strategy works off really well for me, but I do a rear naked choke and they seem really calm and I feel better. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and they just kind of get sedated a little bit and they go loose and limp. I thought you were going to say that hug works really well, like you wanted me to give you more hugs or something like that. So yeah, I'll remember that next time we get together. Kip, so good to see you.
Okay?
Just rub your back and put the back of your head and my hand on the back of your head and just push you down to my shoulder.
Smothered me into your short beard.
That's right, into my short beard. Yeah, you just got to experiment. And you know what? Here's the deal with these questions. Like, this is a great question. Sometimes the correct course of action is the one that you're currently on. Yeah. Like was this guy's name Ed? Is that right?
Luke Watts.
Luke. Okay, Luke. I was way off. So, Luke, maybe you're actually doing the right thing. Because what I heard is that you're actually doing a lot of good things. And just keep doing that. That's the answer. Like, just keep doing that. Because there's a lot of behavior over the past 6 years. I think he said his son was 6. Yeah. A lot of behavior over the past 6 years that have created this environment that you've noticed is not ideal. It's going to take a lot of unpackaging, kind of rewinding a little bit, rebuilding some new strategies. And that just takes time. Just because it isn't working immediately or you said, hey, it's not working over the last 30 days. 30 days is not a lot of time. So just keep doing it and implement some of these strategies as well. I think that'll help.
One thing that you've mentioned, Ryan, that I really like is you said whenever you implement something new, you're going to naturally kind of get some pushback. And even this you might. Like what you might be implementing is exactly what your son needs, but he's not used to it, right? And he's not familiar with it. And you're going to probably get a little natural pushback. So just realize that it's not going to go smooth immediately. It'll take some time. The only other thing that I would add is I would add the conversation of what's going on. Why are you upset? Then general dialogue of what is really them. Because with my 15-year-old now, whenever he gets upset, well, first let's just say this. Us getting angry that they're upset negates all this and just makes it worse. Right. So I think that's a given. We need to be calm when they're upset. But with him, it was always kind of, if he's arguing with my wife, I just sit him down and was like, what's going on? Well, when mom says this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, was that true? Was that your interpretation of it? And he's like, well, that's my interpretation. And they're like, okay, so what you're mad about is actually not even real, first off, right? You're creating that on your own. Realize that mom's doing this from this perspective, help them understand the emotions and where they're coming from. And I think that intelligently gives them some ammunition to deal with other things in a different manner in the future on their own as well. So,
right. Yeah. I would say in addition to that is, and I'm not suggesting, Kip, you do this at all. I think you do a wonderful job probably at this, is be careful of pandering to them a little bit. Right. So, because I think that's the mistake too, is you treat them like babies and then they have some resentment built up, right? So there's a line between oh, was it your fault or was it this or was it your perception? And I don't know if pandering is the right word necessarily, but just like
Letting them
treating
figure it
them,
out on their own a little bit is what you're
yeah,
saying.
but well, and just like not treating them like a complete baby, you know, like even if
Yeah.
they're 6 or 10 or 15, like, you know, let them figure some things out and let them struggle a little bit and work through it without having to like coach them on everything, you
Yeah.
know. Or sometimes just being quiet is good. Asking a question, then just listening, you
Yeah.
know, just
What?
shut up and listen.
Yeah. And maybe a hybrid of that approach, Ryan, would be, hey, go into the other room, do your breathing. And then when you come back,
Then we can
now,
talk.
now let's talk. And what did you work through? Let me give you some coaching on what you got
Definitely.
clarity around. Yeah.
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 There's a lot of little strategies that you can use and experiment with.
Yeah. And to your point, it's different for every kid. Every kid.
That's the thing. You think you're
Like
figuring it
every
out. You're
kid's
like,
not the
oh, cool, I
same.
got
Yeah.
this. And then your next kid's completely opposite. Right.
Yep.
So,
Yep. What works on
but I
one
think that requires a level of empathy. Like, oh, this kid is not the same. And that's okay. I just need to know how to have the conversations, the activities, et cetera, that will help him or her improve.
Yeah. All right. Adam, is it Lions or Leons? Lyons.
I would say lions. Yeah, I'd
Adam
say
Lyons.
lions.
How do you set boundaries for yourself when it comes to choosing between spending time with family versus spending time with your friends and going out? With my son in daycare now, I prefer to spend time with him over having a sitter watch him while I do extracurricular stuff. But I'm concerned it may reflect poorly on other relationships.
Well, so here's the problem with this, not the question, just the set of circumstances, is it's not a formula,
Yeah.
right? Because if it was a formula, it's like you spend 73% with your family and then 27% is your own. Like that's not how this works. If it was, it would be way easier. Nobody would ever ask the question because we'd all have the formula. So it's very intuitive, right? Like you have to be in tune. And at times, you know, the family's firing on all cylinders and things are going well and the relationships are solid and maybe you can afford to invest a little bit more time and energy into yourself. And then there's other times where, you know, there's some issues between you and your wife with communication, or your son or daughter is dealing with something at school, or, you know, they're going through puberty and there's a lot of emotions and changes that you need to be aware of. And maybe you need to be a little bit more present. But I do like the idea of doing both. Like they don't have to be mutually exclusive, right? So you can go and take care of yourself. A prime example would be when we were in Salt Lake this past weekend. You know, that was for me, right? Like I went and I visited friends, and you and I and 10 other guys had an opportunity to roll and train. And I also brought my kids, right? So we put in some hours with the kids. We had a great time with my two oldest boys. And I also recharged and rejuvenated by doing things that I like to do. So I think there is, especially when your kids are young, a lot of great overlap in that. Yeah, you don't have to drop them off with a sitter. You can have them come to jiu-jitsu. And occasionally I'll have my kids come to jiu-jitsu and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna train. This is dad's training. You guys can hang out over there. You can find something to do. You can roll around on the mats over there in this section. This is your section. And I'm gonna be over here. Don't interrupt me unless there's a problem or an emergency. Those are the boundaries. You do your thing. I'm gonna do mine. Then we come back together and everything's fine. So I wish I could tell you like the balance is found right here in this moment. It's not. You just have to look at it and say, okay, does my family need my attention? Yes, good. Give them more attention. Is my family okay for tonight? Yeah, I think they're okay. Mom's home. Everybody's happy. School went well today. My wife's doing well. I can afford to back out a little bit and go do something for me. You just have to play with it. It's just a lot of it's just intuition. A lot of it's just, yeah, it's just feeling it out. That's it. I wish I had a better answer and say, well, it's this percentage of this time, and then you're set. It's just not. That's what makes it hard.
Yeah. And I would assume, Adam, there might be a little bit of guilt. I think that we come into the scenario. We talk about this often that you know, I feel bad taking my kids and dropping off the sitter so I can go to gym or so I can go to here and I should be spending time with them. And but it's also like you don't want to create resentment against your kids for not living, and you need to establish those boundaries and show them that those things are also equally important. So yeah, it's a balance.
Well, and not only that, you're absolutely right. But not only that, it for your kids to be with a babysitter is actually good for your kids. Like they need exposure to other authority figures. And if it's always you, like if you're always the one who's who's the authority, then that's going to create a problem, because when they get a boss or they get married and there's some other figure that they have to be accountable to, it's like they don't know how to handle it because they've only been accountable to mom and dad.
Yeah.
The other day we were at a movie and my second son was kicking the seat in front of him, and the guy turned around and he was polite, but the guy, and if he wasn't, I would have said something, but he was polite. He's like, "Hey, excuse me, could you be careful not kicking my seat?" And I think a lot of dads would like rush in and like, I'm like, no, he's right. Like, don't kick his chair.
Totally.
And so I turned to my son. I said, "Well, what do you say?" He said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to kick you." Okay, now we fix it, right? So I can let other people have some of that authority and let my kids be accountable to other people to a degree. Now, obviously, if the guy was a dick, that would have been handled differently, but he wasn't. He was fine. And my kid learned, like, oh, you don't kick the seat in front of you. And that was a good experience for him to have another interaction with another adult, because he's going to get that in life. So, yeah, don't think that it has to always be you. Giving kids exposure to other people, their peers, other authority figures is actually a good and helpful thing for them.
Yeah, totally. All right, Clint McKines, just some comments. Thanks for making some time hitting the mats while in Utah. I know I appreciate it a ton, as I'm sure the other guys did also. Did Ryan get Kip to tap at all during that session?
No,
what do you?
Not even close. Now, I will say that it was fun. I will say that Kip had me in a triangle and he let go, and Kip thinks that he let go because he had me. And I think he let go a little early, because I'm not entirely convinced, Kip, that you had me.
I didn't say I did have you. I was just moving on.
but you kind of led me on to believe that you thought you had me, and I think you let go early.
No, I was just like, oh, I want to try something else. I didn't think
I got this. I'm like, no, he doesn't got this.
Yeah. And then after we got done,
the thing I'll tell you, Kip. Go ahead. Sorry, I keep.
I was just gonna say. Then after we got done training, I told Ryan, "Man, dude, you feel really strong." Is what I said. That in the world of jiu-jitsu, that's the other insult that you can bring to bear to someone.
Instead of technique, I think I lost you. You there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're saying
instead of saying great technique,
strength
like,
instead of technique.
Yeah.
Well, I'm too green to know that that's an insult, because I would take that as a compliment.
Yeah. Right.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm strong. No, I thought it was good. Kip, the thing I appreciate about you is everything when you roll is like, everything is super fluid. You're very flexible. It's like the exact opposite of me. I feel like you're like water and I'm this like block, like trying to do different things. And so it's always fascinating to roll with somebody. Not only can you see their personality, but just their body types. Like I have a guy, Ryan Daggett, he's a friend of mine up here, and he's long. He's probably, I would say 6'4", maybe 6'5", somewhere in there. And he's super long, and he loves to do the lasso. Yeah. And then just like spread me out. And I'm like, damn. And I just can't get around it. Like, but then there's other guys that I roll with who like physicality, and they like to be close proximity and ground and pound. And I like that game. So I'm like, bring it on. Like, let's be chest to chest and do what we need to do. And so like, it's so fascinating to see everybody's different personalities and styles coming through, and then their body types and what you stack up well against versus what's like your weakness. You move very, very well, which is difficult for me because I don't move as like, I'm more rigid and slower, and you are like flowing and fluid, which makes it hard to like get a hold of you.
It's interesting.
I can still kick your ass though.
Such a great game. I remember in whenever you're like, I use strength unnecessarily, like earlier on this podcast, you mentioned that. And I can't help but I have flashbacks. Sometimes when I'm dreaming, I have nightmares of this, of Ryan in my half guard, I think. And I'm trying to work like a half guard game, and you're just sticking your elbow and grinding it into my jaw and making eye contact, looking at me going, I'm just like, you're an asshole. Just smashing my face for no reason other than just to be a jerk.
I like it a lot. Like, I really like it. Like, if I catch one of my favorite things to catch somebody in is like an Ezekiel, because I love it, because it hurts, like, and I can just put my fist right there and just like crank, and I can even feel like my face just like, Gah!
Yeah.
I just love it. I love it. So that is something I need to be aware of, because I think if you're in like a tournament and you're competing, that's one thing, but you don't want to be a dick partner, right? Like when you're training with somebody, you want to be a good partner. So.
Yeah, that's funny. We need to get you to do the. Have you seen that triangle variation where you just use your fist to finish off the choke?
No, but I would like to learn that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anytime I could make a fist and bury it in somebody's neck, like, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, there's a nice triangle variation where you can use one fist or both fists to finish the choke off. Yeah,
it's actually show me that one.
All right. Oh my goodness, this is funny. Did you read this question?
I think I know which one you're referring to.
So this
somebody
question
went ahead and rated my alter ego. I noticed.
Yeah, this question is from Brian Mitchler. Is veganism the sustainable solution to ending world hunger and cruelty? I feel it may even bring world peace. Any thoughts on veganism and its role in manliness?
It was funny because
and the guy has a head bun. It's awesome.
I saw that. Read the first part of that question, or like the first question. Read that one.
Yeah, is veganism the sustainable solution to ending world hunger and cruelty?
So I read that sentence and I was like, what the hell? I'm like, it is not cruel to harvest animals. That's immediately what I thought. And then I'm like, who wrote this? They're in the Iron Council? Like, this is weird. And then I looked and it's Brian Mitchler. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I get the joke. Yeah, it's not cruel to harvest animals. I mean, what, 97% of the population eats meat? And here's my thought though, like, to answer it truthfully, because there are people who legitimately like have this question, probably guys that are listening and in the Facebook group, and like, let's address it. If you want to be a vegan, be a vegan. I don't care. I really don't. I don't. It doesn't bother me. Doesn't say anything about your manliness. I know we like to joke about it, but like nobody legitimately thinks that if you decide to eat things other than meat, that you're less of a man, right? Like nobody actually thinks that. So when we bust your balls about it and we give you a hard time, that's what we're doing, is we're just giving you a hard time. We're just having fun, right? So if you want to eat vegetables, cool. The problem I have is when vegetarians or vegans or whatever, they have to like get on everybody else who does eat meat. Like nobody cares what you do, but you care what everybody else does. Like just shut up and live your life, eat what you want to eat, and let other people eat what they want to eat. And then they say, well, haven't we evolved past eating animals? No, we haven't. 98% of us have not evolved past, and we probably never will. And nor do we need to. That's why those animals are here. Yeah. This is natural. This is the cycle of life. It's the food chain. We're at the top of the food chain. Yeah. It is what it is, right? And then when we die, and we will die, then we grow into plants and grass and dirt, and the animals eat us. Like this is just the way it is, and there's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. So if you want to eat vegetables and whatever else you eat, tofu or whatever, cool, eat it. Great. Yeah. Good on you. I like vegetables with my steak.
We had some good friends our friends from New York. I don't know. We had someone at the house and we were talking about hunting and cruelty and killing an animal. And someone said, oh, I feel so bad. I couldn't do it. And I'm like, you should feel a little bad.
You should.
Yeah.
It should be a reverent thing.
Yeah.
Should be some reverence around it.
That should be the emotion. Because right now, like you said, 97% of us are all pulling the trigger anyway. We're just pulling the trigger with the dollar bill or something else. Like
that's a good point.
You should know what it feels like to take a life. You should feel that. And it would change you. It would change your perception about animals. And that's good. It is a good thing. But it's uncomfortable. So, okay, let's avoid it. And
right.
then
let's have somebody else do it.
Yeah, let's have someone else pull the trigger so I don't have to face it. Right. It's like, no, like you
I like
should.
that. It is funny because I mean you're so right. Pulling the trigger with our dollar bill or whatever. That's such a great way to look at it. It's funny because every once in a while somebody will say something. They'll see me hunting or whatever, and they'll say, "Oh, how could you do that? I can't believe that's so wrong." Blah 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 blah. And I ask them. My first question I always ask them, "Do you eat meat?" And the overwhelming majority of them say yes.
Dude, you'd expect them to be
at least lie.
Kind of wise enough to go, "Oh no, I
don't eat meat." Yeah, at least lie about it. But the reason they don't lie is because they cannot formulate the connection of eating a burger from Burger King or from the grocery store and an animal dying. If they could make that connection, they would either not eat animals because that's what they say they believe, or they wouldn't lie about it. I mean, excuse me, they would lie about it because they don't want people to know, right? But the fact that they're not lying about it, that ignorant, says that they don't understand the connection between food and death. It's a very interesting thing. Very interesting. It's very hypocritical and very ignorant. So now, look, if somebody says no, how could you do that, Ryan? I can't believe you kill an animal. And I say, do you eat meat? And they say, no, I don't eat or consume animal products. At least that person has some integrity. Like, I don't agree with their lifestyle necessarily and what they choose to eat, and that's fine. They don't need my permission. But at least that individual has some integrity. And the other thing, too, is you can't completely get rid of, like, there's been studies that have shown, like, there's more animals that die through harvesting of crops than any hunting that ever took place. Like, you think about the mice and you think about the rodents and the rabbits and the coyotes and the deer who were going to eat that. And, like, it's like you can't escape it. We are part of nature. And in a lot of ways, this is the other cool thing. I had a great conversation with, I think it was with John Lovell from Warrior Poet Society. And we talked about that issue, like eating animals and how we're sustaining our life and how we're contributing. And the thing that got brought up is that human beings are the only predator that's humane. Like, lions are not humane.
Yeah, we're not eating the cow while it's still breathing.
It's living. Yes, we are the only super predator that considers the feelings of our prey.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying we are actually not only at the top of the food chain, but we're also the most humane. Hunters are the same way. The overwhelming majority of hunters I know, they don't revel in the kill. It's part of the game. And they're very, very reverent about the process of stalking an animal, of making an ethical shot. Cam Hanes is a great example. Like, he trains every single day, all year long, so that when the moment comes and he has to put an arrow into an animal, that he makes the absolute best, most humane, ethical kill shot that he possibly can. Because he doesn't want that animal to suffer. Because he knows what it's like. He's intimately familiar with an animal suffering, because I'm sure that he's had experiences where he's lost an animal or wounded it, and he doesn't want that. No true hunter wants that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just interesting. This guy, Brian Mitchler, man, he's something else.
His title as like a job is authenticity consultant.
Thanks, Brian. That? Did you do that?
No, I didn't do it. But someone with admin access obviously did it.
Okay. Sounds like Reese, something Reese would do.
Or someone is willing to pay a monthly fee into the Iron Council to continue this show going forward. Yeah.
Like, they're paying a membership just so they can do that. That's awesome. Brian, you get to stick around for a little while.
Yeah, we'll stick you around. That was great. All right, cool. Marty Miller. Mentoring and coaching are both important for personal development. Could you compare and contrast these and give some examples from your life? Also suggest some practical ways that these strategies can be implemented in the IC. Thanks. So mentoring and coaching.
Mentoring, coaching.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's pivotal. Look, we might just be debating semantics when we get into, like, what's the difference between a mentor or a coach or a whatever. Like, you can fill in the blank. I don't really want to get into the distinctions there. Ultimately, I think what you should be looking for is somebody who is willing to tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. That, to me, is a very good indicator that this is somebody who actually cares about you. they're not always worried so much about your feelings that they aren't willing to help you grow and expand. So somebody who's going to tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. Another component that you look for is somebody who isn't going to like provide you all the answers. That's way easier. And it's nicer when somebody says, oh, just do X, Y, and Z. And sometimes that's necessary. But most of the time it's like, well, coach them through, ask them good questions, allow them to come to their own conclusions. That's so much better than just giving somebody the formula or the perfect answer, is letting them discover it for themselves and giving them just enough rope to not hang themselves with, to not kill themselves, like just enough to feel some pressure and feel some pinch, but at the same time, like not hurt themselves. And like, I'll give you an example. Pete Roberts, he's somebody like that for me. We had a great discussion a couple of days ago. We went to lunch together and talking about putting together this new event. And he shared with me a lot of cool insights, a lot of good insight. He's like, look, man, I don't want you to have to pay tuition payments. That's what he calls it. It's like, I don't want you to screw this up. But he's like, there's going to be some risk involved. And it's my risk. It's not his risk. It's my risk. I have to assume that. Like, he can't take that level of risk on. But he's willing to help me and coach me and teach me what he knows so that it doesn't become so expensive that it breaks me or is unnecessary risk that I shouldn't expose me and my family to. So that's what you look for. As far as practicality, just implement what you guys talk about. Just implement it. Like, that's the greatest thing you can do. So if you ask for somebody for advice, whether it's somebody on Instagram or an official mentor capacity or a coach, somebody you've paid or hired to help you, the best thing you can do is actually implement the advice. Like, I can't tell you how often I talk with people and say, hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. What should I do? Here's a couple thoughts. Here's a couple of resources. And then they never do anything with it. It's like, how insulting. Not only did you waste my time, and that's exactly what you did. You wasted my time because you didn't, like, I was gracious enough to give you a gift, and then you didn't implement. So you wasted my time, and like, you wasted your time. Like, why even ask me the question if you're not going to implement anything? Like, what a crazy thing to do. Yeah. If you have somebody you trust enough to ask questions, to mentor, to coach, to counsel, to guide you, the least you could do is just take it and apply it. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Pretty practical.
I think this would be insightful, and maybe I'll go first because I think we get wrapped up with this idea as a mentor or a coach, right? So for me, I have a Jiu Jitsu coach. Mm-hmm. I have a fitness, strength, and conditioning coach. I consider my CPA a form of a business coach. I have a business coach that may not even know that he's my coach or my mentor, Ron Heffernan. I make him my coach, right? Because I seek his advice from a business perspective. Like, I have multiple people in my life that I would put this title on. Mm-hmm. And they're all different assets or different aspects of my life that I've like chose, like, okay, this person can help me in these areas. Right. I'm assuming it's the same for you.
It is. I think what most people are looking for, it's great insight. I think what most people want is they're looking for like their Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Or Rocky's trainer, right? Like, they're looking for that one person who have this amazing relationship with, and they teach him everything about life. It's not how it works. Like, you're not going to get that. But and by the way, going to have. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, by the way, in your example, it didn't work out too well, right? Like, Obi-Wan totally failed.
Exactly.
And Rocky's personal life was a complete wreck, right? Because his coaching was only for boxing, right? Like, no one was helping him on that marriage of his or raising a kid.
Right. That's exactly right. But you got to find people who are doing what you want. And I know this sounds overly simplistic. I get it. Okay, I understand. But it's the truth. You got to find people who are doing what you want to do. One of two things, I should say it this way. Doing what you want to do, having results doing what you want to do, or results in coaching other people to do what you want to do. I add that caveat because I take athletics as a great example. Like, it doesn't take a Super Bowl champion quarterback to coach a quarterback who can then go on to win the Super Bowl. Right? Like, for example, Tom Brady. Arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. Well, he still gets coaching, but I guarantee the guy he gets coaching from isn't as good a quarterback as Tom Brady is.
Yeah.
It's just not possible. Tiger Woods, another great example. Is like his coach is not as good as Tiger Woods at golf, and yet he can still coach that individual. So you can have one of or both your results and success in that area, or results in producing results in other people in that area. And then you hire these people to teach you, to lead you, to instruct you, to guide you, and to teach you what they know. It's that simple. It really is that simple. So if you want to get strong, find a fitness coach like you did. If you want to get good at jiu-jitsu, go to the best jiu-jitsu gym that you can possibly find. If you want to learn about growing a business or starting a podcast or creating a movement like we do here, find somebody who's doing that, pay them to do it, and then do what they say, because they have some record of success.
All right, John Jenkins, have you ever considered trying to get national coverage on a segment such as 60 Minutes to promote our mission and what we stand for? Can I just point this out, because I love this about John here. He says, such as 60 Minutes to promote our mission and what we stand for. And when I read that, I was like, yes.
Yeah, that stood out to me too, because that's what it's about. I try to be very careful of saying me, mine, my, I. Like that's something I try to be very, very careful of. When I'm talking about it in the context of what we're doing here, I always try to be deliberate, although I don't get it always right, about saying we, us, our. That's more valuable than just saying I, me, mine. Yeah. So the fact that he's using that term is awesome.
Yeah. And it creates an opportunity for John then to say, yeah, we, right? But if you always said I, my team and my mission or whatever, it doesn't even create that opportunity for John to say, it's ours, right? Mm-hmm. Like you give him that opportunity to do that based upon the language that you use.
Right.
So, anyhow.
I learned this, and then we'll get to John's question. I had this pet peeve when I was early in my financial planning practice. I had a trainer that would actually come with me on my appointments. Like they were legitimately my appointments. The people that I connected with, the people that I called, scheduled the appointment, and then I brought my trainer with me to help me. And I had one trainer in particular that anytime he would jump in, he would start talking to that individual as if like I wasn't even there. It was so infuriating. He would say, oh, my plan is, and my strategy is this, and what I would do for you is this. I'm like, whoa. This is not your thing here. Like the least you could do at a minimum is say what we can do for you and how we will help you at a minimum. Better even than that is probably in that case to say, hey, here's what I'm going to help Ryan do for you guys. Here's how he's going to help. Here's how he's going to structure your plan. Like be very aware of this. All of us have been in situations where people, and this is what they're doing. They're taking credit where they shouldn't take credit. That's what's happening. Yeah. And you are probably doing it too. I'm doing it too. People who are listening who are doing it too. When you say I, me, mine, you're taking 100% credit for something that isn't 100% yours. With the Iron Council, for example, because all these questions are coming from the Iron Council. It would be easy for me to say me, mine, my, I, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you could justify that.
I did create it.
Yeah.
Right? But if I don't use the term we and us, then I'm discounting, Kip, everything that you bring to the Iron Council. And I've been doing team leader calls lately because we do that every quarter just to make sure we're in sync with everything. And it would be discounting everything that the team leaders have been doing over the past almost 5 years now. Like, what right do I have to claim credit for something? Do I have right to claim some of the credit? Yeah, which is why I say we.
Yeah.
But what right do I have to claim their efforts as my own? I don't have that right. So to answer John's question, national coverage, that is something I'm very interested in. Frankly, I haven't done a whole lot of that, any of that up to this point. I got a connection with Tucker Carlson's team. I put out a call and I've got some feedback and some ins for Prager University. But yeah, like 60 Minutes, all these things. These would all be great outlets. So if you guys have connections or opportunities and you think that it would be a good fit for what we're doing here, I would just ask that you make the connection and we'll see what we can do and we'll get this message out to the masses, which is what needs to happen. Did I lose you again? I think we're having some connectivity issues today. It's been rough.
Yeah, a little bit.
Cool. All right, what's up? What else?
Okay, let's jump to our anonymous question.
Okay.
So Mr. Anonymous Over the last few months, I've noticed strange behavior out of my girlfriend. I've asked about it, but I get the old "I'm just stressed out" response. I tell her to let me know what I can do to help and move on. Saturday, I see her texting a guy on Messenger, but I don't really think about it too much. Last night, she left her phone in the living room to go take a shower, and a message pops up on the home screen talking about past sexual experiences. I'm torn how to proceed. I have a kid, so kicking her to the curb is last resort, not the first.
Yeah, I know this is.
And I'm assuming not the first time, but I'm assuming not the first
option.
Resort.
Right.
Yeah, first option.
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I read that. Yeah, I mean, this is tough, man. No, like this stuff happens. This is actually, unfortunately, it's not uncommon. You know, we hear things like this quite a bit. I think the first course of action is to confront the issue head on, tactfully, respectfully. Because if you jump in there guns a-blazing, which, maybe you can make the case that you have some right to do, it's just not going to work. That's the thing. Like you want to
effective. Yeah,
exactly. Like regardless of the outcome, you want this thing to work out for you, probably for her to some degree, even though there might be some of course, some bitterness and contention and animosity, definitely your kid. So you need to confront this head on. Like you can't, here's what I would not do. I would not side skirt the issue. I would not set her up to fail by like testing her and putting out these little things. Like I wouldn't play games. A lot of people do that. Like, oh, I'm going to see what she does. Dude, you already know. All right. You already know she's cheating on you. You know that. So, and this is actually good for this month that we're talking about the idea of assertive communication. This is a moment where you're going to have to practice that assertive communication and say, look, your phone was out. I figured out what's going on. I know what's going on, but I need to hear it from you. And you need to give her the opportunity to confess, to confront, and to share what is actually going on. Like there's no healing whatsoever, whether you decide to keep going with her or disengage altogether. Nothing will move forward without her confessing and being truthful and you confronting it. So that's the very first step. Then from there, I think it's being very realistic about what she wants. It sounds like maybe you want to try to make amends, or that's certainly a consideration. And I think I'm not going to tell you not to, but if that's something that you want to consider is making amends with her, you need to make sure that she wants to make amends. You need to ensure that she's fully on board with this. And if there's any inkling whatsoever that she's not vested or she's not interested, please, I beg of you, and anybody who's in this situation, don't think that you're going to change her. Right? Like don't fall into the trap of saying, well, yeah, but if I behave just this certain way, then maybe she'll see. She won't. Now you can improve yourself and you can fix yourself, and you should be doing all of those things because we talk about that at length, but don't change for her. Like don't do that for her. Do that for you. And if there's no inkling of her or some small little tell that she doesn't want to improve or fix, or she wants to continue this behavior or seeing this guy, you got to get out of this situation. You have to. It sucks. Yeah. That's the thing that's so hard about this, is that it sucks because you're thinking about you, you're thinking about her, you're thinking about your kid. These are all good things to think about, but it's not going to be better. Like think about this. What's going to be better for your child? You and her, the child's mother, being separated but being like happy, or being together and being contentious and bitter and miserable and backbiting and cheating on each other? That's not going to be good for the kid either. So again, step one, confront, give her the opportunity to like actually come clean and confess what is actually happening. Then from there, it's a decision of, is this going to continue? If you feel like it will, and you feel like she's not interested in, I don't want to say like repent, but that's kind of what the thing is. Like if she's not interested in that, then you got to move on to, okay, well, what's the exit strategy here? How can I make sure my kid's protected? How can I make sure I'm protected? Because at this point, it becomes a very difficult decision, but a business decision nonetheless. You got to fight for your right as a father, fight for your financial rights, and make the best decisions that you can on that course of action. Now, if she says if she's committed to changing, make her come up with a plan. Like, tell me how you're going to do it, right? Like, it's not good enough for you to say, oh, no, I'm going to change. Because that's what, of course, they're going to say that when they get caught. Okay, well, what's your plan? Like, tell me how that's going to happen. You going to go to counseling? We going to go together? You going to change your behavior? Like, am I going to see this progress? Like, tell me exactly what you're planning on doing in order to correct and rectify this behavior. And here's what I would not do either is don't ask what you can do. Right? Like, so if I'm going to my wife because I know she's stepping out on me or whatever, I'm not going to ask her what I can do to improve the relationship. This is her thing. I didn't cheat on her. She cheated on me. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to go to work on myself. I am. But I'm not going to put myself at her mercy because she messed up. That's on her. And when I say, hey, what can I do to change? I'm not going to allow her the opportunity to say, well, if you did this and this and this, then I wouldn't have cheated on you. Bullshit. You made a conscious decision to step out on me, and I'm not going to come off of my mantle of masculinity, if you will, and subject myself to changing my behavior because you made a mistake. Now I'm going to change my behavior because I want to change me and improve me and do it for me, not for you. You have to answer to me. I'm not the one on trial here. So you tell me if you want to maintain this relationship, what you're going to do to improve, what behavior is going to change, how you're going to ensure that's happening. And I'll worry about me and what I'm going to do for me, not for you.
If you don't mind me adding, Ryan, I think what's critical about what you said is one has long-lasting growth and transformation tied to it, where the other just generates animosity and temporary, right? If she's coming to you going, oh, well, if you would have done that, and you jump on that train and go, oh, yeah, sure, I'll change who I am and I'll do all these, it's not going to work, right? Change doesn't come from that angle, right? You just kowtowing and being someone that you quote unquote have. Yeah, exactly. That's not going to work that way. So even if you wanted to, it's just going to create more animosity than it is anything else.
Yeah. And why would you put yourself at a lower inferior position in this relationship? Like my job is to continue and do it virtuously, but my job within the dynamic of my family is to increase and improve my position and dynamic within the family. Like, it's not to subject people, it's not to be a tyrant or a dictator, but it's to constantly build authority and credibility. Because then when I speak and when I act and when I make decisions, if I have increased levels of accountability, increased levels of credibility and authority, then they will follow voluntarily. Like, everything improves because I'm getting better. I will never, ever position myself in an inferior position to make my wife or children feel better about themselves or better about their poor decisions. I've got to stay here above the fray, and they've got to elevate to this level. It's just the way it is. And whether we're talking about a negotiation, because that's what a separation essentially is, and that's what it might come to, in order to be a negotiator, you have to have the upper hand.
Yeah. At one point, Ryan, we should chat about that more. I would love to have that conversation even more so above and beyond just this use case in this relationship, this scenario about a spouse, right? About the importance of staying at that higher level in multiple facets of life, including work and our relationships with our families and whatnot. That might be a great discussion. Maybe it's a Friday Field Notes in the future, but
yeah, it'd be good. I mean, a simple analogy we can use is, let's say somebody falls overboard of a ship. What are you going to do? Or is in the pool, you're going to throw a lifesaver to him. You're only going to go in there and subject yourself to that own level of risk as a last resort. but you're gonna try to scoop them out of the water. You're gonna throw a lifesaver. You're gonna get that pole and like try to, hey, grab this and pull them in. You're not gonna actually like go into the water unless it's evident somebody's gonna be injured or die because you don't, right? But the first resort is, can I save this person from this position that I'm in right now? And that's the better position, right? I mean, going back to jiu-jitsu, right? If you think about somebody sweeping you, what does somebody need to do to sweep you? They need to get some of your foundational elements out from under you, right? So like, I've got my knees, I've got my feet, I've got elbows, or I've got arms. In order for you, Kip, to sweep me, you've got to eliminate at least one, if not two or three of those pillars. And if you can do that, then you can probably sweep me more successfully. But if I can maintain my foundation, keep my hips straight, keep my feet and knees and things on the floor, and keep myself up, propped up, like, you're going to have a harder time getting me to where you want me to go. Like, I'm in the position of power, and that's where we need to be. We need to be in that position of authority. And we can't do that when we're flailing around with somebody on the bottom. We have to be up here on a strong base, strong foundation, doing what we can, offering a hand, offering a lifesaver to pull them out of the situation they find themselves in. But the other thing too is they have to exert themselves. Yeah. Right? Like, if I see somebody in the water and I'm like, here, grab this, and I throw them a lifesaver, like, they still have to grab it. Like, it's your responsibility to grab it. Or I put a pole out there, or a stick, or whatever. You got to grab it. You got to do something. And if you're not willing to do that, it's like, man, is this person really struggling? Like,
yeah,
or don't want to be saved?
Exactly. Do they want to be saved? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
One thing that came to mind really quick on this question before we move on is I think there's the importance of being clear in communication and setting expectation. I can't express that enough. And maybe because I think it's one of those areas where we might just assume, right? Oh, of course what she did is wrong and she won't do it again. But I would literally like, hey, so just to be really clear, this is unacceptable. And I will not subject myself to this. So if this happens again, right? Like, really set those expectations.
Even expectations going into the initial conversation. Hey, I need to have a serious conversation about something. And here's what I don't want it to be. I don't want it to be an argument. I don't want to attack each other and upset each other verbally. I certainly don't want it to get physical. I just want to have a very level-headed, truthful conversation about some things that I've discovered with regards to our relationship. And if I feel like it's going to go somewhere that I'm not interested in going, I'll end the conversation.
Yeah.
I'd love to have this conversation, get things figured out, but these are the terms by which we're going to communicate.
Yeah. And by the way, that communication, it's good for them.
Yes.
Right? If she's in this relationship with you in a way that she doesn't want to be in, like, then she should be out. Like this is, it's a conversation of what's best for both of you, not just, you know what I'm saying? Like, she needs to figure out what she's doing, and she needs to have some integrity around it. And that conversation benefits her as much as it benefits you.
Right. Yep. Tough situation, a realistic situation a lot of people are dealing with. And, I hate to say it like this, but I think we do need to say it, is let this be an example to those of you who don't find yourself and are not in this situation right now. Let this be an example of, finding somebody that you can commit to, being very aware of and ready to bring a child into the world when that situation calls for it. Addressing red flags early, like, let this serve as an example of some things to be aware of so you don't find yourself in that position. I hate to say that because this is somebody we're talking about. This is a real human being that's dealing with this shit, but also it is a good reminder of, like, okay, this is some of the things that could happen if I don't address these issues up front.
Totally. And the flip side, right? The danger of chatting late night with an old high school fling on Messenger, right? Mm-hmm. Like, avoid these circumstances where, you might get your ego stroked and feel good and feel wanted and desired by someone, and fall into that pit of, like, letting that conversation, start creeping into your marriage. Like, I think there's some danger and warning signs on both sides of this. question for all of us, really. So,
Well, let me share a really interesting conversation my wife and I had a couple days ago. She wanted to post something on social media, and it was like really thoughtful and some things that she'd been dealing with, and she wanted to post this picture. Well, she went down to the Bahamas a couple of weeks ago, and she had this picture of her in a swimsuit, and like she looked great, my wife. She looked amazing, and she asked me. She said, "Hey, I want to post this. I'm thinking about posting this, but how do you feel about me posting this picture?" And it was her in her swimsuit, and I said, I don't really like that picture. I mean, I like that picture.
yeah.
But I don't really want you to post that picture. Do you have another picture that I would feel more comfortable if you used a different picture. Now, in today's society, by today's standards, that a lot of people would say, well, who are you to say what she can and can't post? And this isn't the 1950s. And they'll say all these things.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I think like what came of that for me is that I had enough social capital built up that she asked me. And when I said, I really would like you to use a different picture, that she used a different picture out of respect for our relationship. That to me was that's years and years of work and effort. I'm not trying to keep her down. I'm not trying to manipulate or control or none of that. Feminists and these types, they're going to get all worked up about me saying that. But to me, if I was looking at another relationship and I heard that happen, I'm like, man, that is a level of respect on both parties, and both of them have earned that level of respect through the effort, work over years and years of effective communication, of honoring each other, respecting each other's wishes. And here's the thing, if she came to me, and she has come to me, there's been posts that I've made where she's like, I don't really like that I've actually deleted because I respect her and I want to honor that. There's been posts where I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about sharing this. Like, are you okay with it? She's like, I don't really think you should. And I haven't.
It's a Speedo photos or?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's not talk about it. Okay. I don't want all the girls, like beating down my doors and whatnot. And she was worried about that. She was worried about all the women like, chasing me on Instagram. Cause that happens.
All the women's. Yeah.
All the women's. Yeah. Yes. Anyways, the point that I'm making, that you're making light of now, is no, the point that I'm making is it's respect, right? And it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work. And when we had that moment, it just reminded me of like, this is what it's about. There's a level of mutual respect. She respects me enough to ask. I respect her enough to do the same thing, to feel honored when she does that. And of course, through my years and years of work in the relationship, and hers as well, she feels comfortable asking me, and then she honors what my thought is, so that's powerful.
And you can see that level of respect for different relationships all over the place, right? It's present when couples want to backbite each other in front of family members.
Yeah.
And it's present when they run their mouth about their husband against someone else.
Or on social media,
On social media. Yeah, yes. Totally. Like those are all these little elements of like where there's a huge amount of lack of respect and not consideration for one another. Right. And it can really feel like there's a form of isolation, right? When your spouse doesn't do that, right? When they don't respect you. So that's tough. Yep. All right. We have 3 more questions in the IC. You want to try to push through these?
So we're at about an hour and 15. Let's do we'll try to do rapid fire or something.
Okay. All right. Derek Kripe. These are like long questions. I'll read fast. The Mrs. and I was listening to the Mrs. Mickler episode on the road trip to Texas yesterday. What really happened to the snowblower? Now for my real question, how do you approach conversations about big life changes with your children, i.e. when we're all getting ready to move to Utah to Maine? How do you discern true vision from impulsive dreams, thinks in advance, and keep up the good work?
Okay, so let's get through all these. Snowblower. Suffice it to say that
you respect your wife.
No, diesel fuel was put into our our gas powered snowblower. That's it. I'll just leave it there.
Oh,
We got it worked out. It's working again. We drained it. It's working again. Everything's fine. No big deal.
that's almost as good as my son putting oil in the radiator.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That would be a good one.
All
Oh
right.
man. So we got it taken care of. All right. What was the second question about? Approaching kids with
Big life
decisions.
changes. Yep.
Yeah, I think you need to be realistic, right? Like I wouldn't paint it as some glorious fairy tale because it's not going to be. Like just be realistic. Hey, here's the amazing things that could happen. Here's the opportunities that present themselves. Here, let me teach you a little bit about the area, which is something we did about Maine. Like look at the house, look at the property. Here's the animals, here's the hunts, here's the activities, here's the things that we can do. And they got really excited about that. But we didn't paint it as all rainbows and fairy tales. You know, we said, hey, it's going to be hard. You're going to have to leave your friends, and we're really comfortable here, and we like this house. But man, that's the trade-off. You know, you have to be willing to take a risk to go do these things. And fortunately, our kids got behind it. They're young enough, which is good. And that's part of the reason we made the decision now. But yeah, I think we just painted it realistically for them, told them why we're doing it, treated them like human beings as opposed to just little pawns in our game of the family. Like, no, you don't get a vote necessarily, but your consideration is important to us. Like, we want to know how you're feeling and what you're experiencing. Ultimately, mom and I need to make that decision, but you know, we want to hear from you. We want to know. And as they express their concerns and their frustrations and their excitements, we listened to all of them and we took them into consideration, and we framed the conversation in a way that would address the things that they were worried and excited about, because we treated them with respect, you know? So what was the third one? The vision versus impulse?
Discern. Yeah. Vision versus impulsive dreams.
That's a pretty good question. I would say if you haven't really spent any time being deliberate about your vision, then it might just be impulse. Like if you haven't ever taken any time to sit down and legitimately write and think and visualize about what you want and what you want the future to hold, it's probably just impulsive. So, which by the way, doesn't necessarily mean it'll be wrong.
Yeah, I was just going to think that.
You know, impulsiveness, it might actually work out and it might not. And you know what? Even if you plan everything out, that actually might not work. So it's not to say that, I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for feelings and intuition that a lot of us don't take it into consideration. Like sometimes it just feels right, and that's enough. That's enough, depending on the level of risk, and you can create a plan around it. But yeah, if you haven't like deliberately, intentionally mapped out what you want your life to be like and experience and the opportunities you have, then it's probably just impulsive, and it would be good for you to start thinking. And if you're in the Iron Council, should be doing your vision stuff anyways, right? Because that's part of the battle plan. So,
yeah. Prem Ball, do you think it's important for a man to stay up to date with news and current affairs? I personally found that it upsets me and doesn't add value to my life when I keep up with the news.
I think you should focus on smaller first and expand out from there. Like if you're focused on the results of the presidential election, for example, and you don't know what your kids are afraid of, then you're probably focused on the wrong things, right? Or you don't know what's keeping your wife up at night, but you're worried about what CNN is telling you about the town hall thing in Virginia and the Second Amendment debates, then like you probably have those skewed a little bit. But I do think it's important to stay up to date with current events within moderation. You've got to understand the motive of the media industry is to rile you up, right?
Yeah.
Because the more riled up you are, the more you're going to pay attention. So like if you come to a conversation or a circumstance, or in this case, you're listening to the media, but you know what the motive is, you can make better decisions about how to engage and respond to what you're seeing and hearing. If you know the motive is to rile you up, then just don't get riled up. Hey, good to know. Okay, there's a thing in Virginia about the Second Amendment debates. Good. Need to know about that. That'd be valuable to know. But I think you need to start with start with you, know yourself really well, then expand that to my family, then expand that to my neighborhood, maybe even like my church or some other organization that I'm part of, then expand that out to my state, then expand that out, federally. And And I think that would be a better approach. But yeah, I think it's probably a good idea that you stay up to date to some degree regarding current events.
Yeah, half the news that we hear is just noise anyway, right? It's like,
So you have to
there
be
was
able to,
this scenario.
yeah,
And you're like, okay, that's all I needed to know. I
that's
don't
it.
need to know all the other information that you just gave me, boy, because half of it's just perception and opinion.
And if you know the motive of the source of information, then you can better make that decision. If you don't know the motive, then you're going to take everything personal and think everything applies to you equally. It doesn't. Some things just don't matter. And you have to be willing and able to discern what matters and what doesn't.
Yeah. Boy Scouts of America filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy in order to equitably compensate all victims who were abused during their time in scouting. What do you think of this move? Seems like a PC to show and to appease the vocal minority.
Boy Scouts is done. I mean, you can go back. I'm actually curious.
It's falling apart.
Yeah, I'm actually curious because I was talking to my wife about this morning because she had saw it and she had told me about it. And I should go back into Facebook, but I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, I said Boy Scouts is done. Boy Scouts is done. They'll be out of business within 5 years. And I had people, oh no, then they're going to do whatever. They're done. They're done. When you start jeopardizing and compromising on your standards, you're done. Whether that's inviting girls into, it's a shame that they have all these sexual misconduct and assault allegations and cases that they're dealing with. But I mean, yeah, they're done. It's over. Boy Scouts had a good run there, but they started jeopardizing their standards and their morals, and here's the result. Like, it's unfortunate. So is it PC? No, I don't think it's PC. I think it's a move to save their asses.
Yeah.
And they'll probably try to restructure or try to like reformulate it or something, but shame on the leadership of Boy Scouts for getting themselves into this position, for jeopardizing their morals and their standards, and for undermining and ruining a great institution that has served millions of young boys and men. And they ruined it through their own weak, spineless, cowardly leadership. It's a travesty. This is what happens when you get weak leaders. It's weak leadership. And, I get it. I get why they would start changing these things. And I understand, but you don't ever compromise your morals and your standards. This is the result. Always. Inevitably, this is the result. So it's unfortunate. Goodbye to the Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
Even if they come back and they like restructure, they're done. Nobody cares about the Boy Scouts anymore. They've rendered themselves obsolete.
Yeah.
So now we have to do a better job, right? Like in order of man, we have to do a better job as men, serving our kids, serving the young men in our communities, coaching where we can. I've got some thoughts tinkering around and bouncing around in my brain about like, what can I do to help solve this problem? A little bit of that has to do with legacy, which is coming up soon. So I'm not willing to like bash on them without coming up with some improvement and thinking about how we can fix this. But yeah, we're doing a good thing here, and we need you guys to spread this mission and this cause, because now more than ever it's needed in society. And the Boy Scouts filing for bankruptcy and jeopardizing their morals and their standards is a great indicator of larger problem that's happening.
Yeah. For you guys that are interested, we might have a couple spots left for Legacy. That is our Father Young Man event, June 11th through the 14th. To learn more about that, go to orderofman.com/legacy. Join us. There's limited spots. I think the last time we spoke, there was just like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So,
and I had somebody reach out today. He's coming and he's got a friend coming. So like it might be closed out, but if you're interested, just jump on real quick, orderofman.com/legacy, and you can see if there's maybe 1, maybe 2 spots tops, but yeah, there's not very many spots left.
Okay. To join us, guys, to spread this word and to get hats. Bubba would be proud of us today. Both of us sporting a slight curve in the brim.
A little bend in the brim. Yeah.
A little bit of bend, a little bit of Bubba in us. To get your guys' swag and to support the movement, visit us at store.orderofman.com for your hats, shirts, decals, and more. And of course, to spread this message, subscribe to the podcast, hop onto YouTube, take a look at Ryan's not as glorious beard. Or his
Still
neck.
glorious.
Actually, just hop on to take a look at his neck. Yeah.
There it is.
Gosh,
Right
there it is. There is a. I wasn't even sure
There
if
is
you
a
had
neck
one for
under
years.
there. There is a neck.
And
it is weird. Even with my earbuds, I can feel like my earbuds haven't got all tangled up in my beard like they normally do. So might be onto something here.
Yeah. You're like, where's my earbuds? So they're like, oh, it's in my beard yesterday.
Yeah.
And to follow Mr. Mick on Instagram or Twitter at Ryan Mickler. And then finally, join us on Facebook. Submit your questions to the AMA there, as well as look into the Iron Council, our exclusive brotherhood. To learn more about the IC or the Iron Council, go to orderofman.com/Iron Council. And of course, that Facebook group is facebook.com/group/Order of Man.
Cool. Otter. Well, guys, I apologize. We had some, sounds like some internet connectivity issues, so we'll try to work through that a little bit, but I think you caught most of it. Anyways, guys, glad you're here. We'll be back on Friday for Friday Field Notes. But until then, go out there, take action, become the man you are meant to be.